Welcome, everyone. I'm JJ Ramberg, and we are joined today by Worldwide Technology co-founder and CEO Jim Kavanaugh to talk about artificial intelligence and ways leaders can adopt a practical and secure approach to this digital transformation. Jim, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
It's so great to talk to you. And I want to start out by just setting the table of what we mean when we're talking about AI, because there's a range, right, from the machines are taking over to ChatGPT, which by now we are all familiar with. So talk to me about what artificial intelligence means when it comes to your company.
Well, first of all, I think it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And, just the interpretation of what AI is and where it came from and how did we get to where we are today, I think can be interpreted in numerous ways. But from my perspective, and I would say more from a technology and business leaders perspective, we've had what I would call a big data science group and team and practice within Worldwide Technology for over 10 years. So it's big data scientists, consultants, data analysts, and a lot of it was around analytics, machine learning, a lot of things that evolved from what I would call is AI today. Today, with ChatGPT coming, and taking the world by storm here, is really the introduction of generative AI, which is another phase of artificial intelligence that provides additional capabilities on top of some of the analytics and machine learning, and really, I would say, deep learning and capabilities that have been there for years and years. And generative AI has really brought it to the mainstream. So when I look at where we are today, now it is really been something that is not necessarily a back office capability, or it's a deep technology that is buried in the analytics of an organization, or doing an analysis in genomics, or it's back office financials, or whatever that may be. It has now become mainstream. And like, a user interface on a web application to go buy food from, a store, or buy clothes, or you think about how that has changed over the last 10 years. You think about using the web to be able to have your own interface to go Google or search information. Well, now with, prompting and AI, it has not just come to the business or to the back office, it has become mainstream. So, we can talk about wherever you would like to go with that, but that's where I think, people, this is not something that just happened in the last, call it 6 or 12 months. It's something that's been in the works for years and years and years, but now it is really become mainstream, I think, for people and for businesses.
When companies come to you and say, we feel pressure to incorporate AI into our business, either because our boards are telling us we need to, or we just feel like we want to stay ahead of the curve, what questions are they asking you?
A lot. There's, I just had an offsite executive console with a group of customers that we have, and they just happen to be some of the largest banks in the world. So when I look at where AI is today, and I would say the challenges and the questions, to your point, that are coming out, it's across every organization. And as you described, this is very mainstream. So when I look at boards today, whether it's a Fortune 50 board or it's a startup company, there's probably 3 critical things that they all need to be thinking about. One is digital transformation. So where are they going in this world of digital transformation? 2 is security and cybersecurity. And how does that play into all of these things as they look on really driving innovative capabilities around digital transformation, software, et cetera. And then 3 is AI and generative AI. And those 3 things, there's others, but those are 3 critical technology enablers and multipliers that are going to have such a significant impact on businesses of all shapes, sizes, forms, and what individuals do. So to your point on questions that businesses are having, there's a lot of questions that they have. And part of it could be back office IT infrastructure. So do they need to build their AI architecture on-prem? Should it be in the cloud with large organizations like Google or Microsoft, Amazon, or ChatGPT and others? Should it be done in a hybrid way where certain things are done on-prem, certain things are done in the cloud? And a lot of that gets factored into data privacy, governance issues around data that they have. And then they're thinking about on the actual outcome side of it. So what are they actually trying to do with AI to change their business? And how is that going to impact their business, both internally, operationally? So are there things that they could implement from a generative AI standpoint that will allow them to be more creative from a marketing standpoint? Will they be able to connect and in a, I would say, a more scalable, automated way with clients and customers and eliminate inefficiencies? Same thing applies in all operational areas, whether it's HR, finance, supply chain. So these are a number of different things that they're thinking about. What do they need to do to build the infrastructure and the architecture to enable AI? And then what are the actual outcomes and call it competitive differentiators that they're trying to create to deploy internally?
Where do you start? Where do you start to even begin to know what questions to ask?
Another really good question, because it is a little overwhelming, I think, for individuals and organizations. So I'd say one of the first places to start is really trying to understand what is AI and what does AI mean to your organization. And that's where I think, especially if you're a larger organization, they need to be thinking about that IT needs to be a big part of this, just architecturally, how it's set up, how are they going to enable this internally for their different, call it a user bases within the clients. How are they going to secure it? So point being, if you're going to set up an AI enabled capability that is going to allow your finance people to look at data, payroll, analysis, budgets, forecasting more efficiently, you're not going to necessarily want that to be open to everybody in your company. So obviously that can create problems if compensation is all of a sudden accidentally exposed. And the same thing, if that was put out into the open generative AI, call it ChatGPT environments, that could be real problematic for the company. So they got to be thinking about what are they trying to actually do and what's the art of the possible, and thinking creatively, but also what's the architecture that needs to be built and implemented internally to allow this to be done in a very organized, controlled, but scalable way. So you don't necessarily want all of your employees to have access to, call it a general, a ChatGPT or Google Bard out online, and just to be taking company documents and putting them into the AI platform. And now that's out in the open for everybody. Mm-hmm. So there's got to be policies, procedures, practices in regards to how you're going to implement that internally. And then there also has to be governance in regards to what's the most cost-effective way to do that. And then there's going to need to be thought leaders within the organization to help think about what are the things that we think we can do. What is the art of the possible here? Because there are just a lot of things that we don't know all the capabilities that generative AI is going to bring to organizations. So it's going to be, some of it's going to be done on a trial and error standpoint. So those were, if I looked at the highest level, is operationally and architecturally internally. So with your IT and business process organization, and then really getting your business leaders all the way up to the board to make sure that they understand what goals and objectives and opportunities do they think are there leveraging generative AI?
Jim, we're so early in this. Is it something that every business needs to be thinking about? Or is there a scenario where you would say, hey, step back for a second, let this get sorted out a little bit, and then you will be able to step in a few months, years, et cetera, from now, where it's figured out a little bit more and it's a bit more plug and play for you?
A really, really good question, because I think you could debate a couple different. First of all, I guess I would frame it up and say you can't wait too long. Mm-hmm. So there is something to be said about being a fast follower. Maybe let some others figure out some of the trials and tribulations of the real early adopters. But that being said, some of those early adopters may create a real competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. That could put you in a disadvantaged position from a competition standpoint. So I think what a lot of organizations that I see are challenged with today is how to do exactly what you just described, JJ. And that is, how do you move with speed, but do it in a controlled and an efficient way? And from my perspective, and this is what I see, every organization that we are talking to today want to know about AI and what does it mean to their business. And it's large and small. I have a number of executive briefings today, some with some of the larger AI providers and some with some larger customers today. And the topic is all around AI. And what does this mean to their business? So I think there is the word pragmatic approach, but I think there has to be a level of angst also that you have, that there is a real opportunity here to create, I would say, scale and innovation within your organization. But you also need to do it, I think, as you were describing, in a pragmatic way. So you can't, I guess I would look at it, you don't want to go out and have everybody in your organization chasing every shining object. But at the same time, you want them to be thinking thoughtfully and really looking at what's happening around AI. What does that mean to your business? And what do you need to do to implement? And this isn't a short-term, 90-day, 180-day project. This is going to be something, I think, that people need to be investing in for the long term.
You work with companies with just an extreme amount of data, and AI obviously can be incredibly helpful for that, to trying to understand the data. But what checks are there that that you're training your models correctly, so that what's coming out on the other side is actually useful, and that we as humans are not just taking what spits out on the other side as fact and then making decisions based on it?
Well, it's fascinating. I now have, I've had for 30 years now within the company. We've been around since 1990, but for the last 30 years, I have what I call our 7 o'clock finance and operations meeting. It's every Monday morning from 7 to 9, and it's a 2-hour meeting. Well, now part of that meeting, about an hour of that meeting, is around AI. Mm-hmm. And that's how important I think it is. And so literally have our data scientists, our management consultants, business consultants, what we're doing in regards to our go-to-market strategy, and then what we're doing also internally to adopt and implement AI. And my point being, to your question, there are a lot of things that are being learned today. Just like as you described, what are you doing to train your large language models? And there's all these different large language models that are out there. And as I'm learning from our data scientists, there may be small language models.
Jim, do you want to quickly define what an LLM is, what a large language model is?
Yes, and I'll try to do it in layman's terms. Yeah. So if you look at a very large language model, like a ChatGPT, or you have Microsoft and you have Google that are building out these very large language models that require massive amounts of GPUs, primarily powered by NVIDIA, CPUs and just a massive infrastructure that takes, incredible amount of data and aggregates that data in a very, I would say, generalized way, but then allows anybody to come in and do prompting to actually access that data. Those models provide, almost ubiquity of data and information that you can get access to, but it doesn't necessarily provide you custom responses to things that may be very pertinent to you and your business. So there's going to be cases where you can use those models. One, you have to be careful that if you're putting data, proprietary data from your company into those models that are out in the open, to say, that's going to be accessible to anybody else. So you don't necessarily want to do that. And then you may build proprietary models that are in a cloud that are from ChatGPT or Google or Microsoft or others. But again, you need to make sure it's firewalled off and it's protected. Then to your point on these large language models, there's going to be, I would say, more purpose-built models, large language models, and I would say smaller language models. They're more specific to customer data and customer environments that you have internally. And then there's going to be a number of things that are happening in the truest sense of the data science. Training these models is something that that is a very intense operation and I would say effort for organizations. Modifying and configuring some of them in a more minor way is less laborious and intensive. But if you're really going to go in and take the time, you have to have the data science, folks and the deep technical experts that really understand how to train those models that are specific to call it your language internally. And they're going to have to interpret what you mean by different things that you're saying in different data so that it kicks out actual data that's very, that has the highest level of integrity, and they're not hallucinating and making things up. And so you need to train your models not to do that, because they will do that on their own. So that's going to be a big one, JJ, that I think people are going to figure out, that how you set up, call it your unified data fabric, and the information in your organization is going to be very, very important to how, I would say, effective those models are going to be.
Jim, we just have a couple of minutes left, and it's such a big topic that I'd love to leave the audience with what is their first step. They've come away from this conversation thinking, I absolutely need to learn more. I need to incorporate this somehow, if not into my company yet, at least into my thinking. Where do they start? What do they do?
Yeah, I would first, I would say step back and just think about it in two different areas, and depending on the size of the organization. One, create some expertise that you probably already have in your organization on the IT infrastructure side, and look at who are the leaders in that space, and then think about it on the business side and what you're trying to drive, and make sure that you have continuity about those, because and then you're going to want to lean into what do we need to do to build out what I would say that is the most right-sized for your organization, back office IT infrastructure, whether it's in the cloud, it's on, excuse me, it's on-prem, or it's a hybrid solution. And then think about what are you trying to accomplish from the outcome side? What are those business operational efficiencies or transformational changes that you think you can make to your business? And I'd say getting those leaders in place, and then thinking about organizations that can come in and collaborate and help you do that. And that's personally what Worldwide does. We do it on the infrastructure side and we do it on the outcome side. And that's what I think is going to be the challenge as we move forward, because those two need to be connected in a very, I would say, unified way to drive that scale for an organization.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jim Kavanaugh, Worldwide Technology, thank you so much for joining us today. This was really helpful, and really, thanks for giving us a great way to start.